Hi everyone, welcome back to the Nature Patch. My name is Robyn and thank you so much for joining in on another video. If you're new here, hello, it's great to have you. I make videos all about gardening and permaculture and how to connect to your natural surroundings and use nature in the garden. Speaking of which, I have a lot of nature around me right now. Lots of birds, lots of crows and lorikeets, all having the time of their life. So there will be some background noise in a lot of my videos. Today's video is going to be all about how to grow carrots in pots. Carrots can be one of the most rewarding things to grow in the garden. Homegrown carrots taste nothing like the carrots in the shops. They're also something that every gardener can grow, whether you're in an apartment or you have a large bit of land. Today I'm going to be talking about how to grow them in a pot. This is the method that I prefer to grow carrots in southeast Queensland, where we have a really hot and humid summer and pretty mild winters. Now is the perfect time to plant some carrots and get some carrots in the ground or in the pots. So I'm going to be sharing my tips on how to grow carrots like these ones in a small pot like this. The variety that I've chosen to grow in this one here is the all seasons carrot. If you're not sure what variety to go for, I'll put a little blurb in the description of some different varieties that I really like to use. But definitely let me know in the comments down below if you've ever grown carrots in a pot and what your favorite variety is. Okay, so the first step with growing carrots in a pot is to get the pot size correct. I usually reuse pots and I've got this one here which I got from a friend and it's about 30 centimeters or 12 inches in depth and just a little bit under on the width. The exact measurements of the pot doesn't really matter as long as you do get a fairly deep sized pot, depending on how many carrots you want to grow in a pot. Keeping in mind that when you are growing in pot, you are a little bit limited to the yield that you will get, but that doesn't mean that you can't get a good amount of carrots from one single pot. Right, so I'll share with you what kind of potting mix and mixture I use to grow the carrots in and then show you how I plant the seeds as well. The potting mix that I like to use when growing carrots is just a really nice, well-draining potting mix that has a little bit of fertilizer added to it. So this is the brand that I preferably like to use, but honestly any good quality potting mix does the job. You do want to make sure that when you're going through the potting mix, you are just taking out any of the larger sticks or larger organic material that hasn't broken down. This is really important for a lot of other different root crops, just because the more of the larger material that is in the soil, like all of this in here, the more likely it is that your root vegetables are going to fork or grow misformed. I also like to add in a little bit of amendments to the potting mix that I use. So I'm just adding some all-purpose organic compost to this mix here. This also does have a few larger bits in it as well that I'm just going through now and taking out. So we definitely don't want those in there when we're growing carrots. And adding all of this compost in, you can either use bagged compost like I have here, or preferably you can use a homemade compost. It's just going to add a little bit more nutrients to the soil, as carrots are fairly hungry feeders in like a high nutritious soil. So you want to make sure that you've got enough food for your carrots to last the whole length of their growing time. Another thing that I like to add to the pots is some sand. Sand aids to basically provide a little bit more drainage to the soil. So I'm using this propagating sand here. I just got this from Bunnings, but you can use river sand as well, making sure that you're not obviously taking too much or disturbing the ecosystem that you're taking it from. So I just add a little bit in here and this is just going to add a little bit of air and lightness to the mixture, which is going to really aid in the carrots when they're forming the roots and growing down, making sure that they can move past any of the bigger bits that still might be in the soil. And the sand is also just going to allow the water to drain through this mixture a lot easier. And because carrots generally take quite a long time to grow compared to a lot of other crops, I am adding in a little bit more amendments in the form of just an all-purpose vegetable fertilizer. This is basically just blood and bone and a few other different minerals in here, and this is going to make sure that the carrots are going to have enough food for the whole of their life. Just because when we're growing in pots, we're containing a plant to a smaller space, and so you want to make sure that there are enough nutrients in the pot that you decide to use. This is the pot here, kind of dirty. I probably should have cleaned it first, but this is around the size that I like to use to grow my carrots, and you can have a few kind of going on in the meantime to get a succession sowing going. I always like to pat it down and then give it a little bit of a shake, making sure that everything moves down, because you can see here it was a little bit low, so I did top it up a little bit, just because the soil is going to settle over time as well as water moves through it. I do like to wet the soil a little bit first before I sow the seeds. There's a few different ways that you can sow carrots in a pot. There's so many different ways. A lot of people will do the whole different swirl around the pot and then plant within that swirl, so you get kind of a circular motion of carrots. They grow all fairly evenly. So that's one option that you can do, kind of keeping within that natural swirl motion, and this just makes sure that the carrots are a little bit more evenly spaced and not all in one clump, because again, when we're growing in a smaller confined space, there's more likely for a lot more competition with the plants. Alright, so I'm just patting them down, making sure they're all nicely in contact with the soil. And then I'm laying some damp cardboard over the top. This is to ensure that the soil stays nice and moist and that the carrot seeds have a chance to germinate. They're a little bit picky with germination, so they always like to be kept moist. And this is one way that you can do it, is by layering over some cardboard, or you can even use some wood as well to make sure that they stay nice and wet to be able to germinate. This is a few weeks later when a lot of the carrots had popped up, and this is one thing that you will need to do, is go through the pot and thin the carrots, making sure that you're giving enough space in between each plant. And I really just eyeball this, if I see a plant really close together, I'll just take out the one that isn't thriving the most. And I will come back probably in another few weeks just to thin these out again. And this is what you end up with, a beautiful little pot of carrots. Again, you can sow these successionally, so planting them, every week or two and having a few pots on the go, you're going to have a lot more carrots and have them coming out of the ground and being able to use a little bit more regularly. They're just so much fun to pull out. They're a great activity for all family members, and this is the bunch of carrots minus a few that we'd already taken out and had a try that we ended up with from that one little pot. I think they grew pretty well, and they tasted absolutely delicious in our roast dinner as well. I always like to put the scraps into a worm farm, or you can also eat the carrot tops and make a pesto of them. These ones were going a little bit dry, so decided to give them to the worms instead. Alright, so I really hope you enjoyed this video and it gave you some information on how you can grow carrots in a pot. If you've made it this far, definitely make sure to give the video a like and subscribe for lots more garden content. I'm really looking forward to keeping an eye on how these grow and harvesting them, so I will share with you how they go when I pick them. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are in the world, and until my next video, happy gardening everyone. Bye!